Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Sultan's game. So for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel. I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. It's a Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make your mind up about a game in that time, roughly. And I would agree as a rule and say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short, punchy video, broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes, and then you can make up your mind on your own. Okay, so this came out a couple of weeks back, and I've finally gotten around to checking it out. There's going to be quite a bit to tease this apart. It's in an unusual genre that I really love, so it's got its own quirks, and I'll do my best to explain it because for all the reviews and traffic around it, there's actually not a whole lot of coverage talking about what is a really good game. And I would think that's in most part because it's out of Double Cross Studios, who are a Chinese company first and foremost. And being that I'm, Western, and we come from a Western-centric gaming framework, let's say, and the floodgates have only really opened up where China's getting involved. So it is one of those games, you'll see it's got like 10,000 reviews and it's sitting at very positive, but again, not a lot of coverage, and I think that's because it has quite a large Chinese fan base. However, as a Western gamer, this is totally playable. There are some translation issues, but they're not enough to stop this game from being really good. Okay, so what is it? Well, the closest touchstone is going to be Cultist Simulator. Now, that's one of my favorite games ever. I really enjoy it. We've had some other card-based management games spring up over the years, but it's still a fairly, niche genre that hasn't really been explored upon. Like things like Stacklands comes to mind, but that's much more of running a colony as opposed to having a bit more of a narrative through line. Whereas Sultan's game is actually a little bit closer, I would say, to, I think it was the Exile DLC for Cultist Sim, where it focuses a little bit more on a main character trying to navigate a story, and in that case it's that you're kind of being chased across the globe and you have to keep running away, almost like being Carmen Sandiego. So this is a little bit closer to that. Again, I'm doing my best to draw on whatever examples I can because there's so few, because it's such a weird space. Anyway, at its core, it is a management game where you have these cards, I suppose you could call them, which are representative of a whole bunch of different things. People, both just in the world that you interact with, that are adversarial, that you can even combat and fight, to the ones that you have yourself, which are generally like of your household. But you can also have people that join your cause temporarily, and I had a guy that was more of just a fun-loving dude and sort of put his hand up, but then he pissed off because he got bored as well. So you get a whole bunch of that, but there's also tangible type objects. Books play a big part in this, much like Cultist Simulator. However, where in Cultist Simulator, they're more about extracting leads and narrative impetus. In this, they're more like upgrade attribute point type allocators. So you'll uncover a book on stealth, and if you've got enough wisdom, you can get you, because you are represented as a card as well, and you can die, but you will be able to get you or someone of your household read the book and inherit its abilities. So you sort of RPGing the members of your household and your little team as you go along to solve issues. But then you've got more intangible cards like Gusset, and there's all different versions of them. Inside information, secrets, that sort of stuff. These, well, like I said, intangible things turned into actual statistical leverageable bonuses. So yes, you're probably seeing a lot of overlap with Cultist Simulator, but thematically very different, and the writing different again as well. In this, the tutorial sets it up that you are within this sultanate, and it's all very obfuscated. There's a blurb at the front load screen about how they don't really go for specific symbology or anything like that. It's kept vague. So there's inspirations from all sorts of different societies and what have you, but it's not a specific people or a specific empire that you're inhabiting. So it's more of a melting pot of different ideas to create its own nameless sultanate. Anyway, but the idea is that this dude rules with an iron fist and he's bored out of his bloody mind, right? He can do anything with absolute no reprisal or reproach, and a magician wanders into his kingdom with this game, a game of kings, a game of sultans, and all it really is that you draw these cards out of the box box. So it's essentially a deck draw. And the cards will represent a rarity from stone through to bronze, silver, gold, and a kind of sect. I think there's probably 5, but they're things like carnality, which is, sexual pleasure, or even belting people for it. So there is a wider, again, abstract idea behind a lot of stuff in this game turned into tangible card. Things like I think bloodlust or something to that effect, conquest. There's also, I can't remember the name of it, but like financial indulgence, throwing money for the sake of throwing money, the behaviors of the rich and the famous type thing. Anyway, the tutorial shows you that ultimately to resolve one of these cards, you'll have to slot a person against them. And the most basic example, like if you've got a silver carnal card and you've got a silver sex slave or whatever, you can put them together and it should resolve it, right? So it gives you some really basic entry-level stuff for the intro. And there's a narrative underpinning it, how like the courtiers are all very much trying to hold on to the emperor's no clothes scenario, but at the same time they're potentially getting picked out. I think I executed the tax collector or something weird, So they're all doing their best to keep their head down. But at the end of the cycle and the deck was done, the Sultan's like, right, let's do it again. Shuffle it back up. And then that's when you, the nameless protagonist, so you can name yourself, whatever, I just go the default, step out of the crowd and say, hey, maybe this is a bit wild. And the Sultan goes, I got a better idea. How about I make you play my stupid, bloody, insane game? And so there you go. He gives you carte blanche. You draw a card. In this particular case, it's that you have 7 days to resolve the card because you're not the Sultan. You don't have the Sultan's resources. And the kick that he gets out of it, giving all of this is built upon boredom, is watching you as not a peasant, but you are a ruler of a household and you have potentially slaves and nobles that work for you as well, depending on how you start. But watching you try and navigate these cards drawn at random. So you get a week to resolve it, and once you resolve it, you draw another card straight away. And the idea is to try and get through the Sultan's game without dying, and it puts a much different twist on it. So you have more options. A lot of random stuff pops up. There are some pretty staple things like turning up to the court. And if you don't do that, like turning up to the court or sending someone from your household to represent you in the court, it would have to be a noble. For example, you can choose to be of like a noble heritage and have a noble person in your house, but it's only one person. Or you can have like 3 slaves, but they can only go to so many places and they're fairly low skilled. But it's still 3 bodies to do stuff. So that's where it kicks off. You start slotting your dudes, yourself, your wife, your household members. Again, rocking up to the Sultan, that is something that's always there. There are random other characters. You have rivals, you have people that don't really care or are favorable to you, and you'll bump into them through the course of different encounters, like going to the bookstore. Often you'll bump into other nobles there. That so far seems like a pretty great way to try and win favor. Like you can go there to buy a book and you roll dice and there's a chance of getting said book, but there's also the opportunity to get someone to be more favorable and stand up for you in court, because if you don't rock up to court and there's people in opposition of you, they'll start creating slander cards that will go in the Sultan's ear and that will stack up and you will have repercussions. So you kind of have to play at court to a fairly basic level. You deal with all sorts of random events popping up, like there was a wild stallion out in the fields and I managed to capture that and I gave it to one of my tough slaves, and now there's a whole bloody horse racing underground ring that I can be part of and put down bets and get involved in that. There are more pedestrian stuff like going to fences and merchants to buy items to equip to your dudes to level up their skills. Again, like I said, going to the bookshop is a fairly regular thing, trying to pass it, and then in turn studying said book. Things like the whorehouse becomes available after 1 turn, I think. So there are some staples. You run your household as well, so people come by, dinner parties, maintenance, that sort of stuff. Again, if you pass that with flying colors, you'll earn income. That's the main way you do it. So maybe you start skilling up one of your slaves to be really charismatic and have them run the household. So you get into a bit of a rhythm. But of course, all of this is under the terror of the Sultan's card that you have to resolve at the current time. And if you don't do it in the 7 days, he'll execute you. What you can do is you sort of have this sort of pondering button in the bottom left corner. It's like a skeleton in a coffin, but methinks, I believe it's called. And so you can drag those cards. Say you have an extravagant silver, that's what it's called. So you can drag that silver card over that and it will generate an idea of how to resolve that card. And they're not always great. For example, I had some sort of bloodlust one, and it was essentially kill a member of your household by your own hand. You slot yourself, you slot your wife or whatever, and you kill them. That'll resolve the card. That'll move it forward, but you probably don't want to do that. So you can hold out, and as the days go by, opportunities will crop up, and some of them will be favorable to the card you're on. Others, like I had some bandits in the Riverlands that was like you could break a conquest card if you pass that, but I didn't have one, so that was a bit tragic. So it's wild. There's all sorts of stuff. It's way more random, I think, than Cultist Simulator, but it's the discovering and the learning and the navigating. It's really rich and really fun and interesting, but you have to have that tolerance for, like I said, this abstraction of ideas turned into physical cards and playing them. And obviously there's overlap. Conquest by killing those baddies, why doesn't that do bloodlust or what have you? Or even carnal, maybe you get a battle boner out of killing these dudes. It doesn't matter, the game says that this is what it does, that's what it does. Again, I did mention it has a little bit of a language issue. The devs messaged me a couple of times before I covered this because it seems that there's been feedback around that and they've gone to great lengths to patch it and up the writing so it's a bit better, a bit more readable. But they're going for, like, it's not quite Shakespearean or anything like that, but it does sort of wax and wane poetic a little bit, and you can tell it's English as a second language. So yeah, there's a few carrying words missing here and there, the, whatever, but again, the whole package is good enough that it's less that jank puts me off, and it's more that it's something I can overlook because I'm enjoying my time with the game so much. See, look, it's not going to be for everyone, and honestly, if you don't know what Cultist Simulator is, you have no idea, it might even be worth starting with that. But again, if you already have an opinion of Cultist Simulator, like I said, there are some people that will hate that. I understand. I love it. It's one of my favorite games ever, but I also get that it's not for everyone. This is probably not going to change your mind. It's a bit different, definitely different, but it's a lot closer to Cultist Simulator than any of the other crop-up games like Stacklands ever was. So I doubt this will change your mind. However, if you're a Cultist Simulator fan, this is a no-brainer. I hope that covers it off a little bit more thoroughly and without giving too much of it away, because the exploring and figuring out is a huge part of the fun and the loop. And I can't wait to play more, to be honest. Anyway, team, I might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.